It's difficult to watch young Sheldon's only Thanksgiving episode now because of three big heartbreaks. When young Sheldon debuted in 2017, audiences expected a quirky prequel to The Big Bang Theory filled with nerdy jokes and lighthearted humor. But what fans got was a family dramedy that often leaned more into heart than comedy. Now, years later, revisiting young Sheldon's only Thanksgiving episode, Season 1, Episode 7, A Brisket, Voodoo, and Cannonball Run, isn't just nostalgic. It's bittersweet. What was once a charming, funny holiday story now carries the weight of three huge heartbreaks that forever change how we view it. The episode centers around Mary Cooper's Zoe Perry attempt to win her church's annual Thanksgiving brisket cook-off. Her competitive streak collides with Pastor Jeff and the rest of the congregation, while George Sr. Lance Barber plays peacemaker. Sheldon meddles in his mother's plans with voodoo math, Georgie and Missy add comedic chaos, and the Cooper family's quirks shine as brightly as ever. At the time, it was an early example of how young Sheldon mixed holiday traditions with heartfelt family moments. But with hindsight, this Thanksgiving story is layered with unintentional sadness. Three major heartbreaks, George Sr.'s looming fate, the cracks in Sheldon's family, and the way the show retroactively reframes family traditions, make the episode incredibly difficult to watch today. 1. George Sr.'s fate haunts the Thanksgiving table. At the time Season 1 aired, George Sr. was mostly treated as a good-hearted but flawed dad, trying to balance his wife's religious devotion with his children's antics. In A Brisket, Voodoo, and Cannonball Run, George's role is classic sitcom fatherhood, keeping peace, offering dry humor, and reluctantly supporting Mary in her brisket crusade. He's warm, present, and deeply tied to the family's Thanksgiving traditions. But for anyone who knows Sheldon's future from The Big Bang Theory, it's impossible to rewatch this scene without thinking about George Sr.'s tragic death. TBBT established that Sheldon lost his father when he was just 14 years old. That loss shaped Sheldon into the closed-off, emotionally stunted adult viewers first met back in 2007. So when you see George carving turkey, joking with his kids, and keeping the family grounded during this Thanksgiving episode, there's an invisible countdown clock hovering over the table. Every laugh and smile feels fleeting, knowing that in just a few short years within the timeline, the Cooper family will face a devastating fracture. Even more haunting, young Sheldon's final season made George Sr.'s death canon on screen, ending his story in heartbreaking fashion. That knowledge adds another layer of poignancy to the Thanksgiving episode. It isn't just a holiday dinner, it's one of the rare glimpses we have of the family enjoying a holiday together before tragedy strikes. What once felt warm now feels like a goodbye you didn't realize you were watching. 2. The cracks in the Cooper family that Thanksgiving couldn't hide. At its heart, Thanksgiving is supposed to be about unity, gathering family members around the table despite differences. On young Sheldon, though, the Cooper's cracks are always visible, even during moments of celebration. In the Thanksgiving episode, Mary's single-minded obsession with beating her rivals at the church brisket contest is played for laughs, but it subtly reveals her desperate need for validation outside the home. George Sr.'s patience hints at his ongoing struggles with Mary's religious rigidity. Looking back, these tensions weren't just sitcom fodder, they were early signs of the deeper fractures that would eventually split the family apart. Georgie would grow estranged from his parents, Missy would feel overlooked, and Mary's reliance on faith would often clash with her husband's realism. During this Thanksgiving episode, those dynamics are all bubbling under the surface. Georgie is ignored when he tries to insert himself into adult conversations, Missy is treated as comic relief, and Sheldon, though adored for his brilliance, remains isolated by his inability to connect emotionally. What feels like light comedy at first watch now feels like foreshadowing of a family that was always destined to break apart. And that's what makes this episode so tough to rewatch. Thanksgiving dinners are supposed to be about togetherness, but in hindsight, the Coopers were never truly together. They were already drifting apart, and the Thanksgiving brisket couldn't hold them together forever. 3. The loss of traditions that now feel frozen in time. One of the most charming aspects of early young Sheldon was how it leaned into traditions, church on Sundays, family dinners, and, in this case, a Thanksgiving feast. These moments gave fans a rare glimpse into a more normal side of Sheldon's childhood, grounding him in experiences that, ironically, he'd never appreciate as an adult. But the bittersweet part is this: we know these traditions don't last. By the time The Big Bang Theory begins, Sheldon's relationship with holidays is notoriously negative. He dislikes Thanksgiving, going so far as to call it a celebration of food, football, and genocide. That cynical view makes it almost painful to rewatch young Sheldon's Thanksgiving episode because we see exactly what he lost. The family dinners, the jokes over food, even the chaos of Mary's competitive streak, all of it disappears from Sheldon's life after George Sr's death. He distances himself from traditions, and Thanksgiving becomes less about warmth and more about awkward reunions in adulthood. So when audiences revisit this one young Sheldon Thanksgiving, it's not just a holiday special, it's the only preserved memory of a family tradition that won't survive. That realization makes the brisket cook-off, the Cooper banter, and the shared meal feel like artifacts of a lost world. Why these heartbreaks hit harder after the finale? When the episode first aired, fans weren't thinking about the weight of George's death, the family fractures, or the loss of tradition. Season 1 was still in its lighthearted phase, more focused on slapstick and quirky humor than long-term tragedy. But now that young Sheldon has wrapped its 7-season run, those heartbreaks can't be ignored. George Sr's death became a central emotional gut punch. Georgie and Missy's struggles were given tragic nuance. Mary's rigidity cost her relationships with her children. And Sheldon himself grew into a man who saw family traditions as inconveniences rather than blessings. The Thanksgiving episode has transformed into a time capsule. It captures a fleeting moment when the Coopers were all still together, still trying, however imperfectly, to celebrate as a family. Rewatching it now isn't just revisiting an early sitcom episode, it's reliving the calm before the storm. A Thanksgiving episode that means more than it intended. It's ironic, young Sheldon only produced one Thanksgiving episode across its entire run, and yet that single entry now carries more emotional resonance than most long-running sitcoms achieve with years of holiday specials. What was once a fun brisket competition is now a story soaked in unspoken grief. George's presence feels ghostly, Mary's obsession feels like denial, and Sheldon's childhood traditions feel like relics of a life he would lose too soon. That's the mark of what made young Sheldon so powerful. It was never just a comedy, it was a layered family saga that made you laugh while quietly preparing you for heartbreak. And no episode embodies that more than Thanksgiving. Final thoughts. Rewatching A Brisket, Voodoo, and Cannonball Run today is a complicated experience. On the surface, it's still funny, charming, and filled with early Cooper family antics. But beneath the humor lie 3 heartbreaks that make it difficult to simply enjoy the story as it was first intended. 1. George Sr's tragic fate makes every moment feel like borrowed time. 2. The cracks in the Cooper family,